All right. Welcome back to the Everything Firearms Podcast. We're back after a long absence, um, but we're back getting into the swing of things, and we're happy to be doing so. With me here today is a good buddy, Darryl McHenry, formerly of Falcon Munitions Company, and he's going to be here to talk about a wide range of topics and discussions, and we're looking forward to it. So, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to finally be able to sit down with you for one of these.
Yeah, it's been I've we've been discussing it for a couple weeks now, and we finally got everything, all the details, and some other stuff planned for the weekend coming up, and really looking forward to it. I guess we can start by introducing your, I guess, credentials. Just if you want to give a little background on who you are and your experience with shooting and reloading.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been reloading a substantially long time. The first center fire ammunition I ever shot was ammo I helped reload. Now, of course, just pulling the press handle down, seeing bullets, any kid can do that. But, from 4 or 5 years old, I've been invested in reloading in some way or another. Uh, as I've gotten older, and able to understand more of what I was doing and start learning ballistics tables and how the powders work and everything, things really took off for me. Uh, I found that I really enjoyed the science behind the process more than anything. And it would have been back in 2021, I launched my own FFL. It was Falcon Munitions Company, where I was reloading both boutique ammunition. So I did things like 300 Savage, 458 Lot, 9.3 by 64 Bernanke. I had a couple of guys buying that out west there, shooting buffalo and different things with it. Uh, Wound up shutting the business down because my wife and I are expecting a child. And when you run an FFL, the ATF can show up to inspect your business at any time. Typically, they try and do it within business hours, but I was running the business out of my garage, just had built a workshop there. When you're doing that, they'll show up at 3 a.m. because they know you're asleep in bed 2 doors over from the shop. So, to avoid that, that disturbance to my family, at least for now, I've shuttered things. Uh, as I was running the business, one of the big things that I enjoyed, I did a lot of education, a lot of firearms training. I did some reloading education for some folks, and I remained active in those avenues even with the business shut down. So that's kind of where I'm starting to redirect my energies to help educate.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know I've bought in some of your reloaded ammunition for especially the 243, and it worked very well. And you know, you're I say this respectfully. I look at you as like a gun encyclopedia. I come to you with all my questions and all that, and we've spent hours talking about different things, especially the journey of the 6.8 Western to wherever it ended up with, to a 280 Ackley improved. It
Yep.
had different Winchester XPR to maybe even a 1903 Springfield, and then we finally settled with the Savage Axis, and that gun shoots very well, and we got to get back out and shoot that again. But you definitely have a lot of knowledge and experience that um, is great to look to you for information, and that's something that you have all this information, you're always willing to like share it and help people out, and that there's very few people who are willing to do that.
Yeah, and as I've gotten into this business, and even starting as a young kid, and you get your information from different sources as you work your way up, different reloading manuals, and different experts that you listen to, like P.O. Ackley, for example. He's got a wonderful series of books that he had written. Uh, Lucky there.
There's one right there.
I found that it seems like things are getting worse now than they used to be. Like you had guys like P.O. Ackley and Gary Reed, or guys that are developing these cartridges and doing all of this interesting work for ballistics and openly sharing the knowledge. And now, as these guys are starting to pass on, we're losing that level of expertise that we used to be able to pretty easily get our hands on. And that's why I'm trying to do what I do. Uh, One thing that I always talk about, guys collect guns, right? There's guys that collect Winchesters, and like I know a guy that has four 30 gun safes full of pre 64 Winchesters. That's his thing.
Yeah.
Guys that collect Winchester lever actions. There's guys that collect classic Remington, like old falling blocks. I collect calibers. I like to get my hands on as many calibers as I can and see what they can do. And I know, like right now, the big one, 7 PRC, right? Not a whole lot you can do to beat the old 7 PRC, but everyone's shooting that. I can get on YouTube and watch 100 videos on 7 PRC. Have you ever heard of the 730 Waters?
I've heard of it. I don't know nothing about it.
Okay, so how many people are shooting that, right? It was
Exactly.
30-30, neck down to a 7 millimeter. It's nowhere in the ballistic ballpark of that PRC, but it's cool. It's an interesting cartridge that, this is all part of history that has led to where we are. That's the stuff I like to learn about, the stuff I like to preserve and educate them. I've got in my personal collection of approaching 30 guns. Not one of them is the same caliber. If I am going to buy a gun, say I've got a 9 millimeter handgun, of course I have one. When I go to replace this gun here soon, actually, that gun is getting replaced, so I don't have two 9 millimeters. I don't own a duplicate cartridge anywhere. I've got a couple duplicate rifles. I'm big into Savage Axis, very cheap. I rebuild them, do some cool stuff with them. Not a single one of them's in the same cartridge though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like nowadays the 22 Creedmoor is starting to take over, and you get on YouTube, and even outside of like Ron Spomer, and the 22 250's kind of been the king of the varmint for years, but it's hard to go out and find a 22 250 off the shelf anymore. I mean, even then, I know back in the 70s and the 80s, Remington, Winchester, and them, they started to want to get into producing the larger calibers because the Varmintier was out the window, and they stopped, like like even finding a 70 or like a Winchester 70 or a Remington 700 and like a 223 that's very hard to do because they kind of stopped doing that. But the 22 Creedmoor is the big craze, and before I got my 22 250, I was looking into 220 Swift. I think I talked to you about this.
Yeah, yep.
And I was talking to a gunsmith, and he said, "Well, get the 22 Creedmoor." I said, "Okay, yeah." I said, like, tell me more about it. And he told me all this stuff, how it's, you know, he's like 350 feet per second faster than the 22 or than the 22 250. And I'm like, well, I have to look into that. Well, they're comparable. But then I said, well, who makes it? Well, only one at that time. There's only one person manufacturing it. So, and he's like, and it's gonna be hard to find dies for it. And I was like, I'll just get a 22 250. If I have to Ackley it, then whatever like feet per second difference, I'm closing the gap right there.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So I haven't led on to my latest project. I know I talked about it in a video that I did. I'm working on getting a YouTube channel up. So everyone here that might be listening, you'll be the first to know what the project's going to be. I'm building a 25 Creedmoor. This is my first personal. I've reloaded all of the Creedmoors, all the standardized ones. So I typically stayed away from Wildcat stuff for customers unless I was able to get their gun in hand, chamber spec it, make sure everything was going to be safe. 25 Creedmoor right now is a Wildcat. I'm a big quarter bore guy. I was looking at the 250 Savage actually improved. A couple cartridges, in that family. Just for my purposes, it's going to be a kid's starter rifle. That's kind of where I wound up in terms of the power I was looking for and what I could actually put a deer down ethically, uh, level of recoil it's going to put out, as well as being a hand loader. I can tailor the loads. I can bring the recoil level down and build up as the kid gets old enough to handle more recoil. Uh, and it was a Wildcat at the time as I was thinking about this. Uh, Interestingly enough, probably not going to be a Wildcat anymore now. Hornady just started making brass for the 25 Creedmoor. So writing's pretty much on the wall here. They released the brass and they're starting to make, I believe it's a 138 grain AMAX bullet in 25 cal. So writing's on the wall there. I think we're going to wind up seeing a 25 Creedmoor to go along with the rest. So now I'm just waiting for 300 Creedmoor, 338 Creedmoor. I think we're going to pretty much see all the 308 family wind up Creedmoorized here soon.
Yeah, that's definitely the Creedmoor craze is taking over. I know. Um, when the 6.5 came out, that was the big thing, and then some people started turning away from it because they were, you know, I think it was designed more as a target rifle. Some people were experiencing negative impacts with it with um, hunting, and then you got to consider like the BC of the bullets and all that stuff. And unfortunately, the Creedmoor craze isn't going anywhere. I
Yeah.
think that the people who stay away from them are considered a FUD. But I mean,
Well, I mean, pretty much anything you do these days regarding older stuff is going to make you fun. You like
yeah,
your 30-06, you're in a washed up farm, buddy.
yeah, especially getting into that, taking it way back, talking about rebuilding and looking at how what stuff can do. Um, my very first hunting rifle was a Savage 840 30-30. Um,
Okay.
and it's a tack driver. It really can shoot. It can do some stuff that I never would have thought a 30-30 can do with its groups. But I think the barrel on it needs reblued because it saw a lot of use over the years, and I honestly might look into rechambering it into something else. So you're the perfect guy to talk about that with. Now with the 30-30, it's very limited on where you can go with the bolt faces and the size and everything. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what are the avenues for that?
Well, this is the interesting thing. Just like the 308 was necked up and necked down to high heaven, the 30-30 was also experimented with in the same way. So, a little bit of history on that Savage rifle. Don't know if you know this stuff or not. Savage tried making a bolt action rifle back in World War One, shortly thereafter. It didn't sell well. At that time, a lot of guys were still hunting with lever actions and some falling block single shot rifles. After World War II, you got a bunch of veterans coming home that have experience with 1903 Springfield bolt actions. They saw what German and Russian snipers were doing with their bolt action rifles, and we started seeing military surplus telescopic sights. Savage came out with the Stevens 340, which is what you have. Yours was just updated in I think it was like 81 or something. They Savage branded under their name, called it the 840. Because we couldn't keep up with bolt action production, everyone wanted one. It started selling extremely well, and it lasted until the late 80s. And that's why you see it in 30-30. Everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people had 30-30 lever actions at the time. And now that they're starting to transition into these bolt guns, they wanted something that was affordable, that almost any working class guy could go out and buy. And if he already had ammo, he could use it. And that's the same reason why we seen the 30-30 necked up and necked down like crazy, because it was very plentiful. And a lot of times it was cheaper to rebarrel a rifle than it was to go out and just buy a brand new one. In terms of what you could do with that gun, you've got two very easy options, and then you've got a couple experimental options that are pretty cool. The two obvious ones would be the 32 Special, which is literally 30-30 necked up to 32 caliber. Winchester used to make that ammo. It was 32 Winchester Special. It's very hard to find. Obviously, we reload. We can get our hands on dies, make it very easily. And it's as simple as swapping out a barrel. You got your 730 waters, 30-30 neck down to 7mm. That got real popular. They made some lever guns in it, but it got real popular in Thompson Center contenders and encores for pistol silhouette competitions. The nice thing now, the reason these Creedmoors got so popular, right? Things have standardized barrel twist rates. So the 30-30 in the SAMI book, it calls for a barrel twist rate of this twist rate. You can go with a faster twist rate barrel. Say you go 730 waters, get a 1 in 7 twist barrel for that thing. Now you can start playing with different, heavier, higher BC bullets. Rifle will stabilize, and you can do a lot of cool stuff. Where you get real interesting is when you start looking at Bullberry stuff. So Bullberry is like the top barrel manufacturer for Thompson Center contenders and encores, and that's where these came from. These calibers here, they're called the Bullberry calibers. They filled the void for the 30-30 everywhere between 6 and 6.5. So you got the 6mm, the 25, and the 6.5mm Bullberry. As you know, 30-30 had an Ackley improved. They also have a 6mm Bullberry improved, 25 Bullberry improved, and the 6.5 Bullberry improved. So a lot of options there in terms of, do you want to start shooting varmints with your 30-30? Do you want to start shooting long range with your 30-30? You get this 25 Bullberry improved, which is kind of a Creedmoor-ized 30-30. The cases are trimmed a hair shorter so you can get longer bullets on them. And still a bit the same cartridge overall length. Start getting some pretty interesting results. And they're still designed to operate at 30-30 chamber pressures. So if you do spec into these or 730 waters to 32 Special, you don't have to worry about damaging your gun because the max pressure is still the same as the 30-30. It's going to be perfectly safe, whatever you decide to do in that front.
Yeah. Now isn't the standard twist rate for a 30-30 like one? Is it still like 1 in 12 or something like that?
1 in 12 was very common. I think a lot of the more modern rifles are being chambered 1 in 10 because a lot of the modern 30 caliber stuff is 1 in 10 twist rate. In fact, a lot of stuff in general was standardized at 1 in 10. Kind of where Creedmoor took over. 6.5 was, I want to say 1 in 8 twist. I could be wrong. I know it's definitely lower than 10. That's why those real heavy long bullets worked in it. But same thing here. You got the 6.5 Creedmoor. You got the 264 Win. Slap a better twist rate barrel on your 264 Win. Now you got more performance than the 6.5 Creedmoor because you've got more case capacity, more velocity, and you can use the same bullets because of the twist rate. Everyone kind of fell into that high BC bullet thing because long range shooting started getting more popular, as you mentioned. Uh, but rather than keep tinkering around, Hornaday said, if we standardize this, we can sell factory rifles to people that are looking to get into this discipline. It worked. It really did work for him.
Yeah, it's like kind of the same way. It's a little different because the 6.8 Western is a little bit more different, but the 270, I mean, you can put a faster barrel in there, go down to 1 and 7 and then I haven't done any experimentation with it, so I don't really know, but the higher BC bullets that the 6.8 Western shoots, you get up into those like 180 and then I think you can go to 210 with that. I think Browning makes something for the 6.8. I don't know, you don't quote me on that, but I think that the 270, you can you can get similar performance with the 6.8 if you just throw a faster barrel in one. I could be completely wrong with that, but it's like that's the thing is, they create these new cartridges. It's like the old thing with the 223. The 222 was so popular, and then all of a sudden, you just change the neck a little bit, and you have a new money making machine that the U.S. government's going to take over.
Yep. And this, I did some math on this. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but Federal just announced another cartridge, brand new, that they're coming out with, called the 7mm backcountry. So I already have no hopes for this cartridge because Federal's track record for cartridges is, so far they've done 338 Federal, 327 Federal Magnum, 224 Valkyrie, and it might just be those three. Now, of course, the backcountry. Oh, 30 Super Carry. Federal did 30 Super Carry too, so there is five now. They've all pretty much been flops to varying degrees. When's the last time you heard anyone shooting 224 Valkyrie?
Can't can't remember the last time.
I'm one of only three guys I know. Period. I was selling ammo to the other guys across the country, shooting 338 Federal. Great cartridge, just didn't catch on. 327 Federal Magnum. It's the one that it's got a very niche fan base. A lot of guys are shooting that. Not a lot of guys. A lot of guys that are shooting revolvers will shoot 327 Federal Magnum. And then the 30 Super Carry, there's this big hubbub about it. I did not, in my time running my business, get one single request for a 30 Super Carry and never even had the chance to play around with to see what it could actually do because you start looking at the guns like, oh, they're not actually in stock. There's no way people are buying all these out. It's ridiculous. But anyway, they've come out with 7mm backcountry now. It's the Sig Fury, except an all steel case instead of the bimetal case. They're saying it will be reloadable because they've got some new special steel alloy they're making these cases out of. And it's rated, I don't know if Sammy's approved it yet or not, but it's rated at 80,000 PSI. So their claim to fame is that it's a smaller cartridge case than like 7PRC, but it's higher velocity than 7PRC because it's 80,000 PSI. Well, the case dimensions have finally become available. Literally, like an hour ago, Ron Spilmer dropped a video. Backfire, I think that's the guy's channel. He dropped a video. Must have been a time release because I've seen all these articles coming in, and I want to say it was Field and Stream, might have been. Released the cartridge dimensions. It is a Creedmoreized, as I'm going to put it, 280 Ackley improved. it's two. So the 280 is 2.525 inch max case length. This is a 2.417 inch max case length. So it's 0.9 0.7, what was it? It's like 0.95 of an inch difference. The Creedmoor versus a 308, it's like 0.077. It's right in there. That's what they did. They Creedmoorized it. And then cranked it up to 80,000 psi to get, according to their claims, like 3,100 feet per second from a 20-inch barrel. Okay, sure thing. And they're marketing it to these long range hunters, but a lot they show you some of the rifles that's going to be chambered in. Some of these are lightweight backpacking rifles, so recoil yeah, some of the powder detonation, so it's a lower powder charge. They're using a fast burning powder to get their 80k psi. There's a little less recoil because the powder comb's a little different. That explosion's going to be less. But you're still shoving a 165 grain bullet at 3,100 feet per second. 99% of your recoil comes from that energy force. So you're looking at like 41 pounds of free recoil energy in your backpacking gun because they're coming in at 5.5 to 6 pounds with this thing. Like, my single shot 375 H&H mags not too far off of that in recoil energy. More power to you.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what I mean. They I think that like you said, they want to appeal to the long range shooter, the guy who's going to go out and shoot 500 to 1,000 yards, and look at the ballistics numbers that you can put up. Well, it's like, I mean, I think everybody knows, unless they haven't heard of it, which I don't know. Some people haven't. Like when I think in 2003, when Winchester came out with the 223 Winchester Super Short Magnum, the 243. Then they did another
Yep.
one in the 25.
Yeah, 25 WSSM. That's like when you try and find ammo for those, 25 WSSM is the one you can generally still get factory ammo for, oddly enough.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the 243 one they folded it. I think in 2006 because they said, "Oh, you can get all this great, ballistics and everything," and it turned out to basically just be a 243. You weren't getting anything, so it's
Yeah.
like I I don't know. They come up with some of this stuff where they try to bank on the marketing of the new thing, and I don't know. It's sometimes it's funny to see, like, I don't know. You think about like wildcatting and the guy in his garage who's messing around with a lathe, and he's working out trying to, oh, well, I can do this, and he's going to go out and blow himself up. You think, like, who do they put in charge of some of these cartridges, because
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong.
they make no sense. Like,
Well, and
I
the thing that gets me too is Roy Weatherby already did all of this, right? Like
yeah,
everyone, they're comparing this to the 7PRC and everything. Look at what Roy Weatherby did with his what was it called the 7 millimeter Weatherby, or did they go off the American designation? He split some of them up, right? Uh, you can't touch those cartridges. You, you had the 224 Weatherby mag, which was discontinued. 240 Weatherby mag, the 257 to 300, the 3378 Weatherby Magnum, right? If you want to chase velocity, the stuff already exists. It's existed for Roy Weatherby was cooking his stuff up in the 40s, right? So we're approaching 100 years. We've had these extremely high velocity cartridges. Yeah, the actions are heavier and this and that. One, they got less recoil energy because everything's heavier. Two, that stuff's cheaper because it's been around for almost 100 years. Now I'm going to have to buy special dies to reload this 80,000 psi steel case, which Federal on their website says, is it reloadable? Yes, if you follow our scientific and some such highly engineered process for reloading this cartridge. Why? I could go buy the weather bag. I could buy 7 PRC and just go set my die up and go clink. Oh, it's resized.
Well, I guess I would have to ask, is it a belted Magnum case? Probably not.
It
There's why
is,
you gotta buy it.
yeah. I mean, it is identical to the 280 Ackley improved, except the case length. From what I read, the shoulder geometry is even identical. So they just pretty much shortened their 280 Ackley and then cranked it in the die and like, oh, here we go, we're good.
I don't know. Normally, when you do this, you want to improve upon something. You would think some of them, I don't know. Some of them do all this R&D and get 50 to 100 feet per second, and you wonder, was it worth it?
Yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, at least the 280 Ackley, I mean, I've seen a lot of people say that they think, that's the most versatile gun for like whitetail to elk because you don't get all the recoil. You have so much of it, like reliability and availability with bullets and powders. But I mean, it's almost why try to improve on something like the 280 Ackley when you don't need to?
And to that point, Ron Spelmer, okay, guy's hunted the entire world 50 times over, right? He's shot more squirrels in his lifetime than I will animals, period, in the
Yeah.
course of my one. He's a big fan of the 280 Ackley improved. I think that's actually how I got you looking at the 280 Ackley was, hey, check out Ron's video on it.
Yeah.
Uh, but even when Ron's hunting long range, like shooting 300 and 400 yards maximum,
Yeah.
because him, a highly decorated, highly respected hunter who knows his equipment, knows his ballistics tables, everything dialed in. That's as far as he considers ethical for him, right? If Ron Bomber doesn't think he can shoot 500 or 600 yards ethically, I sure as heck can't, and 90% of the guys out there can't either. So why extra 350 feet per second for what purpose?
Yeah, and that's another thing is, don't get me wrong, I like velocity. I like seeing how far I can pump something out there. But I know that when you start adding on that extra 2 to 300 feet per second, you can cost your accuracy. That bullet can start to walk a little bit, and if you're going to try to shoot at 600 yards on that elk or whatever, you're right. There's no point. I mean, outside anything past 300 yards, like I don't feel comfortable shooting it, like you're saying, because and I'm not nowhere near the level of the shot that Ron Spomer is. So, like, if he like that should be alarming. That if somebody like that doesn't feel comfortable shooting past that distance, I mean, I've seen Paul Harrell talk about that too, but I've also seen him shoot, you know, 200 yards with open sights and hit the bullseye. So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. So it's just very interesting how, like, I don't know how they come up with a lot of the stuff that they do.
One of the I had heard about this guy before until I read his article. It was when uh, just a couple days ago when this 7M backcountry was first like announced and now supposed to be available to buy as of today. Uh, there's a guy, either he writes for or he runs a site called gununiversity.com. His name is Ryan Kleckner. Never heard of Ryan Kleckner before. And he's pretty much in the same boat as a lot of us are, in that this backcountry is going to be another federal flop. But I'm always interested in credentials, right? Who's this guy to be talking about this? So, because he says he's not comfortable shooting an animal past like 200 or 300 yards in this article. Uh, I'll shoot 200 or 300 easy. I've got several guns I'm more than dialed in for at those ranges. So I looked the guy up. He's a former special ops sniper with the Army Rangers. Okay. And he's saying, I'm comfortable shooting an animal at 200 to 300 yards. Yeah, he could probably hit an animal at 1,000, right? The guy's definitely got the creds. He knows how to shoot. But the ethics come into play. When I shoot an animal, I want that animal dead immediately. I do not wait in the blind. When I pull the trigger, I am confident I watch that animal go down. And I'm out of the blind, walking to that animal. My first deer I ever shot was a doe with my 7.62 by 54 Mosin gun. Buck fever, was my first deer. I shoot that doe. She hops maybe 40 yards. I watch her tip over and fall over. Thinking, great, good shot, but oh yeah, waiting to stand, let her die. She wasn't dead. After about 10 minutes, she went, eh, and that was it. That animal laid there suffering to some degree for about 10 minutes. After that, I really started working on one, my nerves. I hunt squirrels religiously now because aiming for a squirrel's head, I get buck fever worse than any deer I've ever aimed at because I don't want to miss. I want to take them home and eat that thing. So they're shaking. So I worked on my nerves so I knew my shots were clean. And I am out shooting 300 plus rounds out of my rifles, getting everything dialed in. My load's perfect. So I know when I'm aiming at that animal's heart, I'm hitting the pump station, I'm shutting them off. It's like this past rifle season here, wound up getting a spike, nothing spectacular. I couldn't see his tines because they were curved back. His ears were hiding them. I was out with Paul Harrell's 338 Win Mag. So, got to use it. I got to get a deer with this gun. Deer comes out. It was traveling left to right, perfect broadside shot, but it's down in the brush. I had enough clearing. I seen the animal, got to another clearing. I identified it had no antlers, or thought it had no antlers. It comes into a clearing where there's two trees going like this. As soon as I had that shot, boom. I knew I had that animal. I was clean, done deal. Well, I'm within range where I don't got to worry about wind, bucking that bullet, anything like that. Tore right through him, ran 30 yards, fell over dead. That deer might have lived 10, 15 seconds after being hit. That's ethical.
Yeah. Yeah, you get and I think around here your chances of shots out past 300 yards, unless you're mountain range hunting, you're very slim to none. But you get into like the people who go out to Colorado, Idaho, Montana, who go elk hunting, and they'll take a shot on an elk at 600 yards, and I mean, when you get into those larger calibers, not that they can't, but you gotta wonder the ethics of it because like even a 338 Win Mag, I have one, but at 600 yards, you're losing your foot pounds of energy. Your energy is dropping, and if you don't make a great shot placement, and when it slows down that much, the wind can take it. That's just such a risk, and yeah, I mean, out past 200 to 300 yards, I don't want nothing to do with it.
That's why Ron Spomer's got a couple of articles, a couple of videos where he talks about elk hunting. And Ron is an ethical hunter. He'll see an elk like 300, 350 yards. He shoots that animal until it falls over. He's said repeatedly on videos, he's one-shot elk before and they've dropped. He's put 3 or 4 rounds in them to get them to drop. He doesn't care about wasting meat. He hits the animal, it's a clean hit. He knows it's dead, but the animal is not fallen over yet. He keeps shooting until it goes down so it's not suffering. These guys are shooting 600 yards and an animal 700 yards, depending on the terrain. There's a chance you might not get that second shot. But yeah, you hit the animal and it is definitely going to die. It's going to lay there and bleed out for 5 or 10 minutes before it finally does expire because you couldn't get another shot on it. And you're at the velocity point now where your bullet's not expanding properly. You're just getting within that velocity threshold.
Yeah, yeah, I don't want nothing to do with it. I mean, I'll go up to up to the range and shoot at 300 yards, or would love to go, try to shoot 1,000 yards. But other than that, like, I don't want, it's just too much like on my mind, I think. And I think that's most hunters are, it's about the ethics of it, putting it down because you don't want that animal suffering. And I think a lot of people don't think about that who from outside of our industry or whatever you want to call it, but it's just something that you have to always take into consideration is are you are you capable of making that shot? Um, and if you are, is it ethical? Is that like is there anything outside that you can't control that might happen, like the wind or something? And I don't know. A lot of people don't consider that, and then they get into a horror story, and it's just too much for me personally.
Now, I will say there's a bunch of species out there. Like you mentioned elk. Elk are pretty paranoid animal. It's hard to stock up. The guys that archery hunt elk, like they're in a whole nother class of people as far as I'm concerned. They're like must be ninjas or something to be able to get that close and hit those animals. So you start getting into ranges like that. One of my dream hunts is Alaska for Dall sheep. And you run the same thing there. When you start getting into different mountain goat and sheep species, these are longer range shots you're taking because these animals have laser vision. They're 300 or 400 yards away up in the rocks and they see you. They know you're there. Uh, so there are animals out there that do require you to have that level of skill to be able to shoot distances like that. But there's a reason why, one, hunting of these animals is highly regulated. There's guide services for Dall sheep where the guides have never hunted a Dall sheep before because it's a worse lottery system than what we have here for elk here in PA. And then, like Alaska, to hunt Dall sheep as a non-resident, you have to pay a guide service to take you out there because they want these animals ethically hunted. And there's just so much involved with doing that correctly. Versus, oh, there's a whitetail out there at 600. Take as many crack shots at that thing as you want.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so getting into like the ethics of shooting. I mean, I know like Ron Spomer, and it's another thing you turned me on to is the Barnes bullets. Is they're probably the most ethically driven bullet, maybe. I mean, they can really do something, especially you get into the TSX series and even into the bigger ones. You have different ones that are meant to put down. I think is it the Dominator or something made for the heavier game? I forget the name. It has the lead core.
Yeah, so they make lead core bullets, which I think they call their originals. They make solid monolithic, like big and dangerous game bullets. And then obviously they've got your expanding TSX or TTSX. The Barnes Varmint Grenade. If you've never watched the commercial for the Barnes Varmint Grenade, that is a hilarious YouTube video. Just they're shooting gophers and they're literally just exploding. It's pure insanity. Uh, yeah, excellent bullets. I've tested a substantial number of bullet designs. Everything from soft cast lead, hard cast lead, to these monolithic copper designs. And Hornady CX, they've really come a long way with those. Those are doing great. I started shooting CX in 257s, 375 H&H. They make a 375 caliber CX I was playing with. But the Barnes, when you're within its expansion threshold, that's the key. A lot of people do not like these copper monolithics because they say they don't expand. It's not like a lead core bullet. The expansion threshold is substantially higher. Lead, 16 to 1800 feet per second, typical rifle bullet expansion velocity. Barnes, you're looking at 2000 minimum to get expansion. And they want you over that to get reliable expansion. But when you do get reliable expansion, it is one of the most violently expanding bullets I've ever seen in my life. My 257 Weatherby, I have two loads I load in there. The full tilt Weatherby loads 25 or 3,500 feet per second with 100 grain Barnes TTSX. I then have a watered down load that I use in the deer woods, 3,000 feet per second with 100 grain TTSX. That's the same velocity 257 Roberts will get with that bullet. It's capable of getting with that bullet. So you think, oh, 257 Weatherby is not ethical, or it's too much gun, we'll say, right? Because proper shot placement with too much gun, nothing unethical about it. The animal's done for. But too much gun, it's going to destroy meat. Nobody's ever going to say that about the 257 Roberts. That used to be one of the most popular deer cartridges out there. So 3,000 feet per second, 100 grain TTSX. I have a doe come in about 50, 60 yards, and I shoot her perfect shot. The entry hole on that deer was 50 caliber. So I had double the base diameter of that bullet expansion on the entry wound. Wow. I had a dinner, and I have pictures for proof. I necropsy, take necropsy photos of all the animals I shoot. I have a dinner saucer-sized hole out the other side of that deer. And she was light switch dead. That was 3,000 feet per second with that 100 grain TTSX. And I find that to be true across their whole lineup. You get the lightest weight TTSX that's available on your caliber, so you can get that velocity out of it, and it will light switch whatever you hit.
Yeah, that's definitely. I think you showed me photos of that.
That was a mess.
That was I think around the time that the 6.8 Western topic first came up. I think it might have been, or it was either when we started looking at other options. I think I remember you showed. That's when you told me about the Barnes bullet speed for the first time and just seeing what they can do. I know Ron Spomer, he has a video of I think an elk where he shot an elk with it, and it was I forget exactly what maybe it was an elk with a 30-30 or something. It was under 100 yards, and he was like, you wouldn't expect that kind of expansion or drop from a 30-30, which it's just rather funny because, the 30-30s done some pretty great things. And
yeah,
that's as they call, your grandfather's gun. But everybody's grandfather except my grandfather, he can't stand the 30-30, but yeah.
So, and that's one of the cool things about those monolithic bullets. So when you're shooting a lead core bullet, there's two spectrums, right? You've got penetration on one end, you've got expansion on the other. And your goal is to find a bullet that meets your needs somewhere in the middle. Because if you shoot a laser beam hole through an animal, even if you got a good shot, it's probably going to run quite a distance before it manages to bleed out. It's only got a 30 caliber hole through it. Likewise, you get up into something that's going to be expanding violently, more of like a varmint type bullet. I have seen some extreme superficial damage on a deer, and the fragmentation has gotten deep enough to injure it to the point where it will die, but we get the same thing. Animal takes off, it finally expires, and one whole side of the animal's just totally wasted meat because the bullet literally exploded. You got to find something in the middle to get proper penetration into the vitals, expansion to get a good enough hole to get decent bleed rate. Those monolithics do both. They violently expand and they typically don't come apart at all because they're single construction design. So they'll zip right through the animal. The thing that had first got me turned on to them was 257 Weatherby. Ron had this article where he went on a bear hunt with the 257 Weatherby, 100 grain TTSX. He shot at this bear at like, I could be misquoting. Let's say it was 200 yards. Well, he wound up hitting an alder tree branch. The bullet went clean through the alder tree branch and almost completely through the bear. It was stopped on the backside hide of this black bear, and it dropped the bear right where it was standing.
Wow.
Yeah. And, Ron, when you watch his videos, one thing, but when you take the time to read his articles, he's got photographs of the animals in there. And there he is with that beautiful bear you took down.
Yeah, and then like I've noticed, I know Winchester, they have something in my opinion pretty great with the PowerPoint. That's my main deer bullet with my 30-06. But then they came out with the extreme point and they exposed more of the lead. And then they came into problems with them when like blowing up on the outside and not getting any penetration. And I just when I think of something like that, they know that. I mean, obviously they wouldn't put it out there if they didn't expect that to happen. But for a company like that who has done so much research and development over the years and testing, you would think, but I
I can't say for sure, right? I'm not a Winchester employee. I've never been an employee for any of those big manufacturing companies. But my theory is that ballistics gel testing has become probably the most popular media. I mean, I know everyone on YouTube shoots ballistics gel, right? I know self-defense ammo manufacturers ballistics gel test because that's the FBI standard for defense or duty ammo. I have a feeling that we're probably also seeing manufacturers do ballistics gel testing on their hunting ammunition as well. And it's just not how it works. Ballistics gel is a calibrated medium that's just designed to give you a standard. Now, there's some science behind the density, but because of the material it is made out of, you generally get as good of expansion as you're going to see out of a bullet when you hit it. The only media that's guaranteed to expand a bullet better than ballistics gel is water. When you hit water, that hydrostatic shock of the jug exploding opens those bullets right up. Once you start adding dense muscle tissue, bone into the equation, it vastly alters the results you're going to get with the projectile. And a lot of people used to, talk crap on Paul Harrell for his meat target testing. And Paul Harrell himself admitted it was mostly for entertainment purposes because everyone shoots ballistics gel. He wanted to do something fun. But I can tell you, in my own testing with similar bullets Paul has shot, I was seeing very similar results on game that he would see on the meat target. And he would say the same thing that, this is pretty close to the damage I've seen on deer, like his 444 Marlin video. He talks about his reloads with using Hornady XTP pistol bullets in the rifle. And I mean, they're opening dinner saucer holes because they're not designed for that velocity. And this is pretty typical of the wound I would see on a deer that I shoot with this gun. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty accurate in my experience shooting animals and neck cropsing animals with similar bullet constructions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I always enjoyed the meat targets because, he had his high tech meat target with all the rolled up shirts and cloths in front of it, and just uh we the community lost a great one with him. He was pretty great. But um well, like, is there anything that you want to touch on?
Well, I know you've got that Savage 840 project and talking about what you can do on it. What are you trying to do with that rifle? What is Will's end goal for the gun? You trying to like hunt with this thing? You trying to paper target with it? What are you doing with it?
I think, and you know if I would say that if it was just straight hunting, I wouldn't probably change anything with it because it's shockingly, you see all these people who they go in for the backpacking under 5 pounds without a scope and everything. And
Yep.
I'll be honest with you, that rifle with the way it is with its wood and everything and it being older and everything, it's the lightest rifle I've ever held of a center fire. Um, and really, to be honest with you, I think I'm looking for something that I can carry more. Like obviously with the 30-30, I don't know if going 32 special gives me much more distance. I think honestly, I'm looking to expand upon the range of it with, out past the 150 yards and in, or even 150 might be generous, but with some of the newer Hornady lever, like the lever revolution, they've kind of upped feet per second and all that with it. And I think when I shot it last, I was getting on average, like, I want to say just shy 2,300 with it with reloads, which is pretty standard out of 180 grain bullets. So
And on that note, too, what's the barrel length of that rifle? Do you know the exact measurement? Is it 20, 24? I mean, most of those came in at like 18 and 20, I think.
I think it's 20, might be 22.
So if you're trying to expand on the range of that thing and you're dead set on a rebarrel being in order, I would really consider the 730 waters. Same thing applies to it. You start running lever F powder, you can get some pretty gnarly velocities from it. You can take your 30-30 brass and cram it in a 730 die, and you're done. So it's very easy to reload. And obviously, your bullet weights are going to be lower because you're going from 30 caliber to 7. But you run like in the 130, 140 grain range with a 7 millimeter bullet. You're going to see 2650 plus probably running lever F. And obviously, you got a nice, good BC bullet there. Uh, the problem you're going to run into, which won't be your problem because you've got a bolt action rifle, start trying to run some high BC 7s in a lever gun, you've got the possibility of a mag tube detonation. Not the case for you. You got a bolt
Yeah.
action with a mag, with a standard detachable box mag, so you can go crazy with that thing.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's really hard to do anything to it just because of it, the history I have with it and everything. But, I think sometimes if you're going to reload, you got to experiment. And you have to, like a 30-30, it almost, not that it's a crime or nothing, but it almost feels like a crime having a 30-30 in a bolt action.
Well, I mean, like I said, the whole reason they did it was cost effectiveness for that era. Uh, you couldn't split yourself in the middle. You could just go 30-30 Ackley.
That would be that would be very simple.
Yes, you had to get the barrel redone, fire some 30-30 through it, and then go to town with your new fire form brass.
Yeah, that would be. And even I, I'm telling you, I'm genuinely shocked of what Savage, especially nowadays. You can get the Axis, and that's part of the cost effectiveness. And just out of the box, the Savage Axis, they can really shock you. They can shoot, in my opinion, they can shoot right up there with some of the higher models. And are they the most pretty looking stock in it? No, but that's not why I buy a rifle anymore. But I mean, unless it's something I really want, then and I'm going with wood, then obviously condition matters. But I think that uh I'm just shocked of where that what that can do. I mean, maybe maybe I'll pick up just a random box of factory ammunition and bring it Saturday and just show you what it can do. I mean, I'm telling you, it's really something what that rifle can. I mean, it shoots match grade MOA. It's unbelievable. Like,
It's back when even when you were making something cheap, the machinists took pride in their work.
yeah, it really. It's not pretty by any means, but that's I don't think I've ever really seen a pretty Savage.
The Model 99s, obviously, they're kind of clunky looking. There's a couple lever guns that are similar to that, right? Seiko was making, might have been called the Finn Wolf. Uh, Winchester had the 88, I want to say it was. Kind of similar designs. But I love the looks of those Savage 99s. And the whole rotary mag design, let me tell you, I've uh, I've done some cool stuff with nice high BC bullets and 300 Savage.
Yeah,
Oh, a lot of people complain factory 300 Savage ammo is not accurate for some reason, and I've seen varying degrees of accuracy with said ammo. Whether it be the brass isn't tolerance right, don't know. I can tell you that my neighbor's Model 99, we were running some longer burgers in it, just enough that I would try and fit it down through that rotary mag, crank the bullet down a little bit, try and fit in the rotary mag till I just got them working. And that thing was shooting like 3/4 inch groups at 100 yards.
yeah, yeah. That's another thing is I really want to see what my 22 250 can do. I'm looking at getting it set up with the 55 grain Game Kings with the Sierra, and I've shot them out of my 223, and they can. I like them. I don't know. It might not like it, but well,
Those Game Kings used to be one of my so as far as I know, Sierra doesn't make them anymore. They made a tipped Game King. Uh, used to buy those things hand over fist. Ran them in my wife's 223. She deer hunts with 223 bolt gun. Loved it. Just they shot fantastic. The ballistics performance was great. Couldn't find them anymore. Like I said, haven't looked in a while because now I'm running 50 grain TTS Axis.
yeah, yeah. That's how. I have piles of them from buying them before. So if they don't make them anymore, that's unfortunate. But who knows? That 22 250 might not like them. So that's
Yeah, it's
all.
true.
That's all the fun in experimenting and reloading and that. Not so much the math part of it, but I mean when you have the charge master and that they takes all that and but I think just the science behind it and understanding ballistics tables and the different online tools you can use, it's really a lot of fun. I think you know when they you figure out the cost saving of it, they're like, well, you got to factor in your time. Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't factor in my time because I enjoy doing it. I
Yeah, what else am I going to get? Sit my butt and eat a bag of potato chips in front of the TV?
yeah,
Doing something productive with your time. You gotta. Your time has value, but doing something productive with your time, that also has value.
yeah, it definitely does. Well, I think that's pretty good. I think we covered a lot of different stuff. We'll definitely have to do this again.
Absolutely, and I apologize. I'm well known for rambling. As we start to get a little bit of a system here, hopefully we'll be a bit more streamlined with that.
Oh, I think, like I said, you're a wealth of knowledge. So whatever route, whatever happens, if you got to talk for an hour, that's that's good. But yeah, well, definitely thanks for joining me. I'll get this up here later after it's all done rendering and everything, and we'll share it around. But thanks for coming on.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, and hopefully anyone that might be listening enjoys.
Yep. Yep, and then when you get more information with your YouTube channel that's coming up, we'll give you a shout out and send people your way, and they'll be in for some great content
Well,
for
I
sure.
appreciate that.
Yep, no problem. Well, once again, thank you, Darryl. It's always a pleasure, and we'll see you this weekend.
Hey, we'll see you next weekend here.
Yep. All right.